Hey everybody, welcome to Cyber Wise Guys, where we break down the latest trends, threats, and technologies in cybersecurity, helping you stay one step ahead and obviously cyber wise. Our guest today is Ed Morales, Global VP Security in High Growth Business here at TD SYNNEX. Welcome, Ed. How are you?
Doing very well. Thank you, Danny. Thank you, Greg. What privilege to
Thanks.
join this call. Thank you.
No,
Glad to
thank
have you,
you.
that's for sure.
Thank you for taking the time joining us today. And we know you're a busy guy. But Ed, for those of you in the industry maybe that are not familiar with you or TD SYNNEX, which would be strange because I would view, and please correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I would view TD SYNNEX as the largest cybersecurity partner you've never heard of. Would that be, would that
Yeah.
be a
Well,
fair,
yeah.
would that be a fair assessment?
No, that's a fair assessment. Actually, it's been measurable. We are the largest global distributor of security compared to any other distributor in the market. We've got presence across all four regions in Europe, North America, Latin America, and APJ. TD SYNNEX is it's a Fortune 60 company of over $60 billion worth of revenues. We've got, I guess, a team of 23,000 all over the world. Relative to cybersecurity, we've got about 700 professionals that are dedicated to this business. We do, north of almost close to $6 billion worth of revenue with some of the top, about 250 leading vendors in the market. We've been doing this for decades, so we've got a long established relationship with them. My role as the global leader for security is really collaborating with the regional leaders. So I serve them. They're the ones that pretty much run the businesses. What I try to do is work with them to help provide support and unify our go-to-market and strategy. Also, if we're moving and trying to expand vendor relationships across the globe, I work with them to do that. When there's global RFIs, I work with the regional teams to kind of help scope that out and present that. And then on top of that, I also have responsibilities what we call high growth business development, which in TD SYNNEX vernacular, that means includes cloud, it includes security, and data AI. And what we do is we help kind of collaborate and align our strategies to help both from the both enablement relative to internal and external enablement, and basically our go-to-market strategy as a collective as we take this to market. One thing that we're becoming more aware of, and we can highlight this shortly, is the cross pollination taking place between these discrete practices. It used to be very siloed, but through, and we'll delve in this later on. We're starting to see this convergence taking place. So that's essentially my role. I've been with would be well, I guess in the combined, starting with Avnet, I started with them in 2003. I guess I'm reaching 21 and close to 22 years with the company.
Impressive.
Yeah,
Impressive.
absolutely.
Very nice. So, with I would say so many vendors, security, you mentioned like $6 billion in security. So with so many vendors out there, and I'm sure we have tens, if not hundreds, of different cybersecurity. How can or how would TD SYNNEX will help the channel partners, the resellers, the cloud service providers, and so forth, understand the landscape, if you will, of what's going on out there with whether it's like around technologies or partner programs. How does TD SYNNEX come in and help the channel?
Well, those are great questions. I mean, primarily because we have these long-standing relationships with these vendors, we're basically an extension of their sales force and their technology, enablers, if you will. So we are always aligned with these top vendors strategically. So really, what we do for those vendors that actually have existing relationships with these top vendors, we work to help make sure that they're kept up to breast with the most recent updates on technologies, on trends, on making sure that they're optimizing programs because these things that change quite frequently, and partners are very dependent on the rebate and the program stacks that these vendors provide. We make sure that we provide existing support or extensive support. So we have a level of services that we provide both pre-sales and post-sales to help them scale their businesses. One of the things that we do offer, which I think is really innovative, is something called Practice Builder, which I think maybe you've probably been aware of, but it's a very defined methodology by which we engage partners. And what we do, Greg and Dan, is we assess the partner kind of where they're at, and we look and to see where they may have gaps. What we've started to employ is something that was introduced by our Canadian team called the Cyber Defense Matrix, which was really mapping the NIST profile against the kind of the areas of technologies that they meet. And what we're doing is as you start to do a gap analysis, we start to make partners aware that they have gaps in their portfolio. I mean, regardless if you're aligned to some of the larger vendors, they all say they can do everything, but really there's usually gaps in those portfolios as well. So we're using it as a tool to make partners aware of kind of the areas that they can see improvements in their offering and bring that to market.
Excellent. Well, Ed, I'm curious, aside from that, what really is that the thing that sets us apart to TD SYNNEX as a global channel leader in cybersecurity, or are there additional things that make us just stand out from the crowded landscape?
Well, and yeah, so interesting that one thing that we've kind of gotten away from, and I want to highlight, is that because of our place in the ecosystem, you're talking about a company that's been around for 40 years. We've been through so many different transitions of technology changes, geopolitical changes, ups and downs of technology trends and what have you, and we're still here because we learned and continue to adapt. What we tend to do is that even some of what most people would say are the table stakes, operational, supply chain, those things are still very core. I was at a Channel Futures event where there was all these vendor leaders out there, and although sometimes these value adds that we take for granted or they take are kind of just what they consider just baseline, but they're actually very important to them. You talk to everyone on their own. They tell you how much time they depend on us for supply chain, to supplying products for the customers they need. They leverage us for a lot of the financials. So, for example, if they need credit or extra terms, they come to us for that. So we help navigate from that, even from the basics of what we do as a distributor. But we also now get into talking about cloud, Stream One platform, providing capabilities for our part of the Transact recurring revenue models. Right. It's having them transform their business into that from a traditional point of sale business into a recurring business. And then now you get into AI. We've had this program called Destination AI for some time that we've been in since almost 2 years now, where we're starting to help partners migrate or help adapt their customers to this whole technology around AI. And you can see the pervasiveness of AI being implemented in technologies now from Checkpoint, from Palo Alto, from Fortinet, CrowdStrike. These guys are implementing it because that's the bad actors are doing that. And you got things like the cyber range that are implementing those types of technology. So we've got it's about leveraging our traditional value, our heritage, but then continuing to innovate. And because of that, we provide a comprehensive value add, I believe, that's pretty much I think it's unrivaled in our industry.
Absolutely. And that's important to understand that a lot of times the conversations I have with partners about security, they all understand the importance that AI is going to play in security, regardless of the vendor, right? But the next question they usually have for me is, I don't know how to leverage that. And I wish there was a way for me to figure that out, right? Everybody knows the importance. Not everybody has a solution. So I think the role that you just talked about that for TD SYNNEX is helping lead that charge into cybersecurity for using AI as a critical tool, I think is extremely important, at least in the conversations I've had with the many partners I speak with.
Well, and there's a delineation, a very clear delineation between security for AI and AI-enabled security, right? And I think the delineation and distinction is important.
Absolutely.
Because one is basically building the architecture to support and protect those environments. The other one's leveraging the technology that's already being implemented in these products that we already sell. Checkpoint has been doing it for some time. You see these companies, they've been doing it for a number of years. They're highlighting this a little bit more now. And it's becoming more amplified, but that's our job to probably provide delineation for them so that they can understand how they navigate and then basically provide this capability downstream to their end customers.
Yeah, that's absolutely important. I know that one of the demonstrations that I have done in the past is to essentially prompt hack into an AI demo AI that I've set up just to show how easy it can be done without appropriate controls. And
Right.
so you're like that distinction you just made between security for AI and security that's applied using AI to other services is really important. And to show that distinction and talk about how each one of those are apply to that specific partner is in my experience been critical to establishing a good relationship when they're looking for leadership like that. So
Well,
that's
and
great to
Greg,
hear.
I think the thing is that we've also got to be very mindful of it's so it reminds me when I've been around for a long time, and
Mm-hmm.
I've been through these
Yeah.
trends multiple times where when early 2000s everything was virtualization,
Right.
and then everything
Right.
became cloud around,
Right.
and then everything became IoT,
Right.
and now everything is AI. So I've seen
Mm-hmm.
these trends multiple times, but it's about helping our partners kind of sift through the noise,
Mm-hmm.
and then really defining very prescriptive use cases that are meaningful, so that they can both consume and then deploy. And I think
Right.
that's what we're getting to. We're starting to come in, and you're starting to see analysts like IDC and others
Mm-hmm.
kind of understand kind of what's really driving. You hear a lot of noise about have we reached the peak, or and we haven't even it's about some sort of bubble. I use this at an event. So we haven't even unwrapped the bubble gum wrapper yet.
Right.
There's no bubble. We haven't even gotten there yet
Right.
for the bubble to burst. I think we're still trying to navigate what is those things that are going to be adopted, and I think it's going to just take place organically.
Mm-hmm.
Like the way I looked at this, when we started, you can go back to the time when Netscape came out.
Mm-hmm.
No one thought about using this thing called a browser to get access to things on the internet.
Right.
And now it's ubiquitous. We do it by nature. We even use it as a term. Go Google it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's now pervasive. The same thing with AI. I think it's going to be a
Mm-hmm.
technology that, as we get accustomed to it, it's just going to be something that's built in. It's not something
Right.
we're going to do something major. But I think we're at a pivot point.
Yeah.
And one of the most major ones that I've seen in my career in a long time since the advent of the PC. I'm talking
Right.
about back at when in the early 80s, mid 80s, and 90s. What's happening, and that's why you see when you look at analyst report, and we can delve into this a little bit further too, Greg, because this ties
Mm-hmm.
into some of the other cross pollination regarding this thing called what we're calling a partner of the future. You're
Mm-hmm.
starting to see digital. What's really behind the growth of data and analytics, security, and cloud is something what's been termed digital transformation. Now we've
Right.
heard that term overused for almost 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And really what had happened, it applied mainly to the enterprise, started moving to the mid-market, but
Mm-hmm.
now it's becoming more pervasive to the SME and the SMB market, to
Mm-hmm.
where it used to be cost prohibitive, but I think because of AI,
Yeah.
it's actually making it more ubiquitous for firms now to deploy this. So
Right.
that alone is starting to, and we're talking about trillions of dollars of market opportunity over the course of the next 5 years.
Right.
And it's incumbent upon us to make sure that we are positioning ourselves and our vendors optimally to our partners to take advantage of this opportunity in this space.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
Ed, you've mentioned a few things. You've mentioned the practice builder. We have one for cloud. We have one for security. Greg, you've mentioned, I believe, the cyber range
Right.
earlier today. So those are a great example for how TD SYNNEX help partners pick up and or sift, like you said earlier, Ed, sift through the noise. But aside of the cyber range and obviously. Pre and post supports and cyber range, are there any other enablement mechanisms for partners to pick up on, let's say, new solutions, new technologies, or better understanding the ones that they already deploy?
Yeah. I mean, there's always new enablers kind of coming out. One of the ones that was developed when we launched, Microsoft came to us earlier this year to launch, and they were launching Copilot.
Hmm.
And there was something called, and this is kind of almost an extension of what we would see some of our innovation centers, but really around, you've got something called Cloud Labs,
Hmm.
which was something built. I don't know if you're familiar with that was built out by our cloud team,
Mm-hmm.
our platform team. But it allowed partners to have real time, basically doing a real time proof of concept,
Mm-hmm.
leveraging Copilot so that the end customer could get a real view of what that experience would look like. So there's that, and I think they're expanding that and include other things around security because Microsoft has a pretty robust security stack.
Mhm.
In addition to that, there's like within the platform, they've added capability. They introduced a SecOps feature in Stream One
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
that goes out and does essentially got built. It was kind of built on an overall. If you recall, Danny, we did something called it was a click to run, or one of our
Mhm.
offerings around Microsoft's fraud mitigation,
Yep.
the
Yeah.
Fraud.
program we had, right? Because what was happening is these customers are turning off MFA, and so this was when I did an analysis of the environment to see their posture to make remediation. Well, so they took that really cool offering and
Mhm.
incorporated it into Stream One to allow partners who sell Microsoft to go and do a profile and analysis of their end customers and basically provide a remediation outline of how they could, essentially correct these gaps in those environments. So you've got that. You've also got, like I said, we've been enhancing our ability to do cross market and cross high growth enablement, cloud and security, AI and security. And I think those things are new areas of focus. And then one other part, and you mentioned this earlier, I think, was this whole partner segment type, MSPs. There was something that we released earlier this year, and this was as a result of a work stream that was conducted globally to help address the MSP partner as they were trying to expand their businesses and going from an MSP to an MSSP.
Mm-hmm.
Well, what we discovered was that we didn't have a formal offering, but we
Mhm.
discovered clearly that we had been servicing this customer segment for years, for decades. We had dedicated teams in certain parts of the world, but we never aggregated that value. So I guess what I want to get to you is that we've got both an enablement from a sales perspective,
Mm-hmm.
we got an enablement from a strategic perspective, technology, and from a business perspective as well, and operational. So we try to cover the gamut to help partners do two things: grow their business or optimize their business. And that's kind of what we build a lot of our value around.
So to that end, it is something I always wondered because I would say we service the two sides or the two ends, if you will, of the spectrum between the vendors and the partners, and sometimes even the customers. So this is all great for the partners, right? Whether they're small or whether they're enterprise and they want to add different capabilities or technologies. But what about the vendor side? So if I'm
Mhm.
for example, I'm a small vendor in the security space, right? And I would like to take advantage, right? I would like my company to take advantage of the vast reach, if you will, global reach of TD SYNNEX. Can I just call up Ed and say, hey, Ed, I would like to sell my solutions through TD SYNNEX? Or how would that process work for vendors?
Well, it's a great question. I mean, well, let me be very I mean, basically vocal about this. I mean, one of the things that you'll see and what you've seen, especially with Patrick being added as, I mean, basically our new CEO, one of the things he's very, very adamant about is that we have two customer constituents. We
Mm-hmm.
have our traditional partners and we have our vendors. And our vendors are our customers as well. And we look at them as such.
Mhm.
Just like we treat every partner type very differently based on their size and engagement with TD SYNNEX, the same with vendors. So obviously we have strategic relationships in a higher level that we have with a Checkpoint or a Palo Alto versus, and as we go down up the stack of offerings, what's really been really cool about this is that TD SYNNEX, and especially in the North American group, have been very good about creating segment go to market for vendors. So you got these franchise lines like I mentioned. Then you have this kind of this next gen type group of folks that really is that second tier that's managed by Colleen Ernst in North America, where they have a lot of these like CrowdStrike, Cloudflare, Zscaler, this next tier of vendors. And the important thing is that go to market is a little bit different because you're doing a lot more business development with them. you're doing a lot more profiling and recruitment of vendors in that regard, right? And so it's really those vendors are just looking to get amplified. So it's a little bit more hand holding per se, because they themselves are getting to that pivot point of expansion. You can see even through our growth recently, I'll mention two in particular. CrowdStrike and Cloudflare were in that group over the last couple of years, and the growth of those two lines have been monumental. That's a result of the way we went to market. And then there's obviously a kind of an entry level version that we do that's run by Cheryl Neal and Emily in her team, that are I would say they're kind of more the entry level vendors. These are vendors that are just kind of moving into distribution. They don't have they're kind of establishing their formal strategy. They need more hand holding. And so it takes a little bit more to kind of get them more graduated, if you will, to that next tier. So I think what was very, very monumental in North America was the fact that them creating a very cool tiering model that allowed the vendors, based on where they were at and their capabilities, to be positioned with the right team at the right time for the right results. And as they continue to increase, they graduate to the next level. Relative to the new vendors who've not been part of ours, there's a really great vendor recruitment team in North America led by Matt Karst and team. And there's a pretty substantial process that's taking place relative to assessing their viability to be distributed. Some are just too soon to be part of our portfolio. One thing that we have to be mindful, gentlemen, is that what we're really good at is accelerating routes to market. That's our strength. And so when we talk to vendors, we have to make sure that they're, from a profile perspective, are ready to be able to be amplified. But there's a very prescriptive point of the process. But what I'm finding is that because of the pervasive nature, especially with AI, go back to AI, there are vendors, the new vendors that are coming, the born in cloud vendors, that are just too cool to turn down. So we find these guys and we bring them in, and because we're waiting for the next Cloudflare to pop or the next CrowdStrike, right? So we don't want to really turn anybody down. So they've done a really good job about trying to find the place for those vendors that we can incubate them for a little bit before they move in. But there's a fulfillment model and an enable model and a go-to-market, no matter where you're at in that portfolio. And I laud the North American team for having such a great structure to do that.
I think that's the critical thing there, is especially in the space that I work in with security, you've got to have that vision to be able to sort of see the next thing that's coming up, because things are moving so fast. And I was really surprised when I discovered, like, just what you were talking about, how the things are too cool to pass up. Well, there's a reason they're too cool. It's because they're going to be something critical for our business and the business of our partners in the next few months or even weeks, depending on how the world changes. But I think that's one of the things I was most impressed with TD SYNNEX is that ability, that vision that we've had when it comes to new vendors. And for me, bringing on someone like Chorus for SOC as a service, I've signed that experience, and those, it was, they were pretty hard on them about what we expected, but they were great. They answered all our questions, and it helped uncover for them some of the areas where they needed to work on when they're going to provide a service like that to a lot more customers. So it worked out great overall, but the vision really was what I was surprised with, and been very, very pleased to communicate that to our partners, about we're looking for the next thing, not just following what others are doing, but we're helping you to get that next step, move to the next level before the whole crowd does. And I've gotten a lot of positive feedback from our partners on that.
That's awesome. Well, yeah, and I want to highlight one thing too, because you just touched on something. I mean, Chorus has been a long-standing partner of ours in Europe for the longest time, and they brought the SOC as a service about a year or two ago, and the Microsoft team were very successful in deploying that. And the fact that you guys picked that up, and Tracy bringing it over, and you guys kind of enabling that and putting it to scale was pretty remarkable. And the speed to market that you brought that to market was pretty impressive. But what I'm finding also, Greg and Danny, is that one of the value adds in the past, each of the regions kind of operated in their own discrete manner. But what we've been able to do, and one of the things that we've done and this is part of the benefits of the global organization, and what we've been able to foster in partnership with our regional teams, is the ability to readily and quickly engage there are security teams within each of the
Mhm.
regions. So
Yeah.
we have vendors that come in, and the North American team may sign them, but where it used to maybe take a year or two to move them into another region, we can now have a discussion with them pretty much upon signing to start getting them engaged in others because of the speed of market, because it's cool, Greg, right?
Yeah.
We want to make sure that the other
Yeah.
regions have access to
Right.
the cool stuff too. And that's kind of
Absolutely.
that's what we're starting to foster as a result. So your testimony on what you've done with Chorus
Hmm.
is what we're starting to see multiple times
Yeah.
across all regions.
Absolutely.
So, Ed, maybe globally, from what you see, do you have you encountered sorry any vendors or partners, exciting vendors or partners that come to you and say, "Oh no, I'm working with this great vendor. They are a niche. They have a niche solution to close a gap in the security space that could be applicable for other regions in the world." Is it something that you encounter every now and then?
Oh yeah. I'll even speak to one that we recently encountered. There was a new one that the Matt and team brought on called Ciolo, Cyolo.
Mm.
And they were doing security, but they did it primarily for the OT environment.
Hmm.
Oh, cool.
Manufacturing,
Yeah.
industrial sites, oil and
Hmm.
gas, which is, there's a great um, as an opportunity here in North America, but where it really, really was, like we're talking about mining and oil
Hmm.
and gas and
Right.
manufacturing, was in Latin America. And when these guys heard about this solution, they really were very interested and really adamant about trying to get them extended over there. So
Mhm.
it's not only mapping the technology based on the channel partner structure, but also by the geographical makeup of our customers, because there's a lot, again, because of the profile in Latin America, those kind of companies, and the gaps that they have on the OT side regarding security.
Yeah.
This became something quite impressive for them, and one
Right.
that we've really accelerated adoption in Latin America. I mean, within weeks from the first
Nice.
conversation to basically getting them expanded into those geos.
Right.
That's one of the things I think you have. If I may highlight that a little bit further, one
Mhm.
of the cool things about TD SYNNEX, and as a kind of a maybe an awareness thing, the the teams across the globe all have the same vision. They're all really great people, kind of all engaged, kind of flowing in the same sort of direction, but there are subtle nuances within each region and country. So we find a lot more commonality than any sort of differences. So I think that's one thing I want to highlight is that a lot of things that you guys are developing in North America are being repurposed in other regions, and vice versa. You mentioned Chorus. This is something that was
Mhm.
fostered in Europe that was brought over
Mhm.
here. And our goal is really to try to leverage the best and scale the best that we have in our company across all regions. And as we start to collapse, I mean, I think one of the things like these types of calls,
Mhm.
Zoom and obviously Teams call is it's kind
Yeah.
of it was one of the things that was a necessity during the pandemic, but it's also made everything much more accessible in being able to
Right.
communicate with other parts around the world.
Right.
And it's brought more community and more collaboration within our organization. So I think you're going to start seeing a lot more of that across all areas of our business. And that's what it's made this exciting to kind of see that happen.
Nice.
So we're almost at the top of the hour, I would say, or at the bottom of the half hour, depending on how we look at it. But Ed, what would be your advice for channel partners that are looking, I would say, to navigate this complex cybersecurity market effectively, aside of calling 1-800 Ed Morales?
Well, I think really it's really engaging with. I mean, there's a lot of noise. Like we talked about noise. These guys are being faced with a lot of things coming at them at all. I would say where you've got connection with TD SYNNEX. If you don't have connection with the cybersecurity team, get that established.
Mhm.
Because you're going to be able to get a lot of really good guidance from a lot of experts who have been around this space for a long time to help you navigate help you
Yeah.
sift through the noise that are out there. So, especially when it comes to things, if you're expanding into, like we talked about AI or things in the cloud, or if you're an MSP trying to expand that sort of
Hmm.
capability, we have the tools and resources and the teams. And if you don't have the resources available, then we can help you do that by our own pre-sales and our own services. Or, like for example, recurring billing is a very difficult thing to establish, but with our platforms, you basically get all access to all those sort of operational
Hmm.
tools to help you build that business. So there's no one of the great things I've ever been told by a partner. I've been told a number of times is
Mhm.
that you guys help us punch above our weight class. In
That's
other words,
nice.
because of the power of TD
Yeah.
SYNNEX, they can compete with the bigger partners out there. They compete
Mhm.
with the bigger lines because they can leverage our resources, our teams, our
Yeah.
tools to help them appear bigger. And with that power, they can go and gain opportunities they've never had the opportunity in the past. So
Right.
that's just engage,
Right.
and we're here to help.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you, Greg. Maybe since we're really at the top, I'm going to leave the last
Yep.
question to you. Right.
Sure. So I think when we were talking about the noise that happens in adopting and using TD SYNNEX, for me, that is the one thing that I was just thinking about how important that is, helping to get through this current noise that's happening, because every week it seems to be something new is coming up. And I think a important thing that TD SYNNEX can provide, and Ed, just to build on what you just talked about, how important it is to have that that sound voice says, hey, look, I'm hearing all of these things. Everybody's talking about the newest and latest thing. Is this just a passing fad, or should I really start putting dollars into investing in this for what I want to do? And I think we can help guide them in that same direction, as well as the fact that what you talked about with the partners are punching above their weight class. Like for us, Danny and I actually are helping to shape something like Copilot for Security by bringing an SMB voice to the small group of people that are shaping that product worldwide for Microsoft, and we're using that based on what our SMB partners are talking about. So I don't have so much as a question for you on to end things, Ed, to really push that last piece of advice you gave, is to say that TD SYNNEX really is an empowering uh, partner to have if they're looking to be successful, especially in something like an SMB market, for security and for enabling them to sift through all the noise to figure out what's really happening, what's really important for their environment.
Well, I'll amplify that a little bit further, Greg, if I may.
Hmm.
I mean,
Sure.
what I want to do is point people back to the high growth global SharePoint site that we have with all these
Yeah.
assets. But you highlight something. One of the things that we discovered is in our global value props, and actually it's been deployed in all regions. One of the things we discovered is that on average, partners can only invest in one thing a year. So
Right.
they gotta be able to place their bets in the right place, right? So because of our vast experience and our capabilities and our knowledge, we
Yeah.
basically we help mitigate that risk of those misplaced investments. And we've been able to prove and through the data points that we're helping partners grow. The ones that engage, as you answered another part, Danny, the ones that engage these things prescriptively are growing 25 times faster
Wow.
than their counterparts.
It's
That
impressive.
right, that right there is a good
Yeah.
ending comment.
Yeah.
So,
That's great.
so maybe, so maybe Ed, I'll finish up with this. We're going towards Thanksgiving. So, what are you thankful for aside of helping our partners grow by 25 times?
Well, I'm thankful for people like you, colleagues and friends. I'm thankful just for life and basically everything it brings us. It's exciting to be around this time and enjoy family and friends. I wish everybody out there a very great Thanksgiving. I do appreciate the time to have this discussion with you guys. It was really fun.
Well,
Appreciate it.
thanks for joining us, Ed. We do appreciate it.
Awesome.
Thank you, Ed, and thank you for our listeners for tuning in to Cyber Wise Guys, because staying secure means staying smart. Until next time, stay vigilant, stay informed, and stay cyber wise.
Bye, everybody.